Hey, it's David with Iowa Tonight. I am here with Sloane Wilhelm from Midwest Model Agency. Hey, it's David with Iowa Tonight. I'm here with Robbie Peterson at RVP 1875 in Jefferson. I am here in Jefferson, Iowa with Ken Basie. Hey, it's David with Iowa Tonight. I am here with Sloane Wilhelm from Midwest Model Agency, and I've got a bunch of questions for you. And I just found out that Sloane is also an artist, so I can't wait to flash some of those pictures on the screen. So if you could tell me a little about yourself, and then give me a story about one of your favorite moments modeling, and then what you're looking forward to in your business career, and then I can't wait to talk about your art. So, hello.
Okay. Hi everyone, my name's Sloane Wilhelm. I go to Iowa State University, so not too far away from our studio, and I'm studying business analytics, and I'm actually getting my master's. I did my undergrad in management information systems, which is pretty closely linked. I think if I had to pick one moment that would be my favorite so far, it would be from the Omaha hair show that we did, where I finally got to do a big runway. There was a bunch of people there, and they did my hair up like I've never seen it done before. I didn't know it could look so good. So just so much fun dressing up and strutting.
That was a nice show. I remember that. That was awesome. Tell me about, I just found out about your painting, and you showed me a couple paintings. You were telling me one about, you did one with the clock tower, so I'm going to flash that up. But you were telling me one about the sign language. So could you tell us about that?
Oh, sure. So my grandma has been one of the biggest inspirations in my life, and really was my rock when she was alive. And she always used to do the sign language, "I love you," to all of her kids and her grandkids before, even if we're just leaving for school or going on a long trip or something. But just since I felt like she was so crucial to the essence of who I am today, the idea that I had for a painting was a big field of wildflowers that in my head I'm walking through, and then her sign language, "I love you," is kind of popping up through the ground. So that was another favorite one.
Okay, so it's not hands popping through the ground, but you're seeing the hand in the vegetation?
Yeah, it'll be easier when you see it.
Okay, yeah, I can't wait to get a picture of this. And then I saw the clock tower. How long did you work on that?
That one was a few days for sure, and that was fun because it's right by where I live and I love my place. So I kept going outside and just taking more pictures and finding different elements, things that I wanted to remember and cherish from this place that I live now for when I move, and then incorporating those into it as little details.
Okay, right before this interview, you mentioned the earrings. Is there a story behind the earrings other than they're just really nice earrings?
Okay, I just got them. I really, really like them. They're gold with opals in between all these rectangles here. And they're from this place in Ames that's a vintage boutique. The owner is just the sweetest person ever, and she's also kind of inspired me. David was asking me earlier that if I had some kind of job that wasn't business analytics or modeling or the things I've got going for me right now, I would love to go and do searching at vintage wholesale events and getting items that I really like and I think others would, and then having some kind of marketplace for that.
That would be fun. That's cool. All right, thanks for joining us tonight with Sloane Wilhelm at Midwest Model Agency. I'll put a link down below so that you can check out her portfolio. And she's done some really cool stuff. And have a great tonight. Hey, it's David with Iowa Tonight. I'm here with Robbie Peterson at RVP 1875 in Jefferson. And you just kind of blew my mind. When I heard about you, I got very excited. And so here we are. Took only about an hour to get here from my hometown. And you showed me some things, but there's so much to talk about. I'm not sure where to begin. So why don't I let you, if you could just tell me, first off, how did this start? And then jump way ahead and tell me about something you're working on today.
Yeah. Well, how I started, I've always enjoyed woodworking, but I spent 10 years at Living History Farms as their furniture maker right out of college. I started as a college intern at Living History Farms. Cool job if you wanted some history credits, you know, without sitting in the class.
Yeah.
And I got hooked, you know, and that was 30 years ago, 1,400 pieces of furniture ago. Yeah, yeah.
Just 1,400.
Just 1,400. And I've set 2,000 as a goal, so the body's got to hang in there for another decade before I'm allowing myself to not do it anymore.
How many a year is that?
70.
70 pieces a year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that first 10 years at Living History Farms, you know, you're talking to 300,000 people a year. So I only got 100 pieces built in that 10 years.
Okay, let me interrupt.
Yep.
What's the farthest you've had to ship something big?
I have a table in Sweden.
You have a table in Sweden.
Yep. A trunk in Australia, a bed in Canada, but that table in Sweden, that's definitely the biggest shipping issue.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah.
And it got there in one piece.
Yeah, well, we shipped it in 2 pieces because it was easier to ship it, but it was kind of funny because there was I had a 3-line party line going with a Swedish furniture maker and an interpreter to try to tell him how to put those 2 pieces together when it got there, because just nobody does it this way anymore. And so there was just a little bit of a tutorial there to worry about.
So what are you working on? I saw you working on something.
Yeah. Well, I've got, I don't know, I have 4 or 5 pieces going at a time.
Yeah.
70 pieces a year is what my average is. And if I have several pieces going at once, I can work on what I'm in the mood to work on that day.
Sure.
You know? But this is a big kitchen island out of butternut. I've got a corner cupboard started here. There's a big walnut thick table over there and that huge triple hutch. Just all pieces that are in the middle.
What's the strangest thing you've been asked to make?
That's awesome that you asked that. So a guy comes in and he says, okay, I want a queen size bed. I do beds all the time, no big deal. Shaped like the Templar, help me out here. You know, it's a compass. Oh my God.
A Masonic symbol?
Thank you, the Mason symbol. He wanted a bed shaped like a Mason symbol. And so it had the dividers, you know, and then it had this thing and the all-seeing eye above the headboard.
Wow.
And so the whole bed had to be shaped. Yeah.
Like the
footboard
compass.
like this and headboard like this with the all-seeing eye. And when an order like that comes in, it's just like, jeez, I know the customer's always right, but sometimes.
Do you have a picture of this?
Somewhere. Yeah. Give it a few minutes. I can pull it up.
Send that to me. I'll put it over the shot.
Yeah.
Because that is kind of nuts.
Yeah.
Okay, now let me go the other way. What's the smallest thing you've fabricated?
Oh, geez. We have a little toy line, you know. We make some Jacob's ladders and OE sticks, and I do some little treasure chests. You know, we have a little gift line. When the bus tour comes in, they need that $50 item, you know, to take on the bus with them.
Now, okay, so let's share, because I didn't understand this when I first heard about you, was that 1875 is because...
Well, so I chose the year 1875 for 2 reasons. One, it's the high water mark of furniture making in Iowa. There were 2,013 furniture makers in Iowa in 1875. That number would never be bigger, 2,013, with a 6-month waiting list on average.
Wow.
Which, the reason for all that is we're still in the pioneer era. People are moving here in covered wagons. They couldn't bring the furniture with them.
Right.
You know. And then when they got here, they've got to have a place to get furniture. And so tradesmen followed pioneers, knowing they'd have business.
Right.
And by 1875, the factory had already taken this trade over on the East Coast. That unemployed 10,000 furniture makers, and that's just that trade alone. So they all moved to the Midwest. In 2013, them came to Iowa.
Wow.
And by 1895, that number was fewer than 200. That's how fast this trade came and went in a place like Iowa, because by 1895, they could ship it on a train.
Wow.
The East Coast furniture.
So, of course, looking around, what you don't see are electric drills. You don't see anything electric. Everything is made by hand. And so, can you share one of your unique items that you use that maybe that's something that you don't have a lot of? Because I see you have a lot of these things back here.
Yeah, and well, that's the other reason I chose 1875, this wall of tools back here. If we were just 10 years earlier in the 1860s, all I can have are the right half. Just 10 years earlier. And if you went back 2,000 years, you'd see almost all of that in a furniture shop. So this trade has changed so little for 2,000 years.
Wow.
And then suddenly from 1865 to 1875, we jumped from wooden planes to metal planes. And that's a product of our Civil War and the mass production of metal in our country. And it changed everything. And of course, there's such a small little window where furniture is being built in this era, because in 20 years, it's all going to be on a motor.
Sure.
You know, the factory is using unskilled labor in a machine to replace a guy who went through a 6-year apprenticeship, which of course the entire trade got dumbed down instantly. And that's why we are where we are right now with plywood and screws and if you're lucky, you know, it's usually particle board and staples.
Speaking of wood, I know that there's so many different types of wood. There's different hardnesses. There's different grains. When you're making, say, that big chest in the other room in the showroom,
Okay.
what is that made out of?
Well, that one's Western yellow cedar, which is considered a softer wood. It hardens with age. So, you know, in 100 years, that wood's as hard as oak. It's some of those softwoods do that. But it stays lighter, which is better for it long term. Wood's a funny thing. You know, everybody that comes in, I've noticed that my customers come in and they always assume harder is better when it comes to wood. You know, oak, walnut, hickory, ash, you know, those really hard woods, maple, cherry. And the problem is those pieces are, sure, they're hard, but they're also twice or 3 times as heavy as some of the other woods.
Are they more brittle?
Well, then they become brittle with age. You know, there's a reason why oak is popular firewood, because when you take an axe, it splits.
Yeah.
So a wood like butternut or even a wood like pine, they have a better shot at 500 years than an oak or a walnut piece of furniture because of keeping the weight down.
Okay.
That's if the joinery is done well.
Now, when you're working on the wood, are you using the same tool and the same, on a different hardness of wood? You say, okay, I've got to smooth this down. Are you going to use the same tool or are you going to use a different tool?
Yeah, nice question. That's why it takes 700 planes to do this job, because you can't use the same plane on pine that you're going to use on oak. Do you want me to do that? Take care of it? Please turn it off.
Okay, so let's get back to the hardness of the woods.
Okay.
When you're working on different hardnesses of woods, can you use the same tools or do you have to use a different tool?
Yeah, and that's why there's 700 different planes back here, because not only do you have all the different jobs, but you can't use the same plane on pine that you're going to use on oak. You have to have different setups for different hardnesses. And what that means is the angle that you're putting on the blade, the lower the angle, the harder the wood it can handle, but you have to back that blade off and take 1/3 as much at a time, which means 3 times as much time to work it. So a pine piece that takes me 20 hours takes 50 hours in walnut.
Oh my gosh.
Which means it costs more than twice as much to have a walnut one versus a pine one. So the middle classes never had hardwood furniture.
Wait a minute. So what you're telling me is a softer wood, not only is it faster to make, but it might last you longer.
It will last longer. Yeah.
But
yeah.
everybody I've always
I know.
assumed the harder wood would last longer.
Because that's marketing for the last 120 years. Because once the factory took the trade over, see, that was the first time in the history of man. I'm usually dissing on the factory pretty hard, but this is the one time I give them credit. Blades spinning around 1,000 RPM didn't care whether it was pine or oak.
Right.
So what a novelty. The middle classes could suddenly afford what only rich people could afford before. And that took over the entire market then. The middle classes could afford a hardwood piece of furniture.
Wow.
Because it didn't cost twice as much anymore. It cost a little bit more, but not twice as much anymore. So the middle classes were getting oak and walnut furniture all of a sudden. Same, you know, the story is very similar with chairs. Chairs make no sense. Like a bench that holds 5 people, it has 12 mortise and tenon joints. And when we go, I'll show you those mortise and tenon joints. And it holds 5 people. A chair has 26 mortise and tenon joints and holds 1 person. Well, it takes 3 times as long to make that one chair that holds that 1 person than it does the bench that holds 5. So who's going to buy a chair? And no, the answer is nobody, unless you were super rich.
Right.
You know.
So in the homes, they would have benches at the table.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have chairs.
And that's why. Yeah. It wasn't that they had 20 kids and they were just trying to stack their. It was a cost issue.
That's crazy.
I keep seeing in diaries, well, after 10 years of saving up, we finally got Dad a chair. You know, they'd have 1 chair for the house. That kind of thing. Came in from a hard day on the farm, you know, he could come in.
And he'd be like, "Oh, you shouldn't have done this."
I know, right? Yeah.
A bench is fine.
A bench is fine. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Well, thanks for taking the time out of your day. we're going to get some shots of the other stuff. But
Okay.
thanks for joining us on Iowa tonight, and you have a great tonight.
So just one of the small samples of all the things that we do in here. We never put two boards together without a tongue and groove joint to make wide boards. So you always have to have a locking wooden joint. So I'm going to use this Stanley 48 tongue and grooving plane. See, there's two blades there. So it cuts the outsides of the board, leaving the middle. By running this fence along the edge of this board, oh, it takes a whole whopping, I don't know, what, 10, 12 strokes there.
Wow.
To make your tongue. Now,
Wow.
my power tool buddies tell me that's about a 30-minute job to change your motorized machine over to make a tongue. So I'm going to have 500 feet of that made while that guy's still setting up his machine. Everybody assumes we're doing it the slow way in here.
Yeah.
But I say it every day, this trade is faster with hand tools because I don't have the machining, the milling, the machining time to set up.
Yeah.
So I just swung the fence on this, I'm sorry, and we just changed it from tongue to groove.
Okay. Wow.
And then when you dovetail the corner, it locks the weak direction.
Wow. Yeah, that blows my mind.
And that's just one of 1,000, operations we can do with these tools.
Very good.
So the most popular piece of furniture in Iowa in the 1800s was the chimney cupboard. We know they made 10,000 of these in Iowa alone. It's fascinating to me. In 30 years of looking, I've never found one. Not one of 10,000 has survived. And that's part of the triple joining system that we do in here to make sure it will last for hundreds of years with our joinery. But the pioneer, they weren't thinking about passing stuff down to grandkids. They just needed something to get them by. And so this piece was always just nailed together. So what we do is we take that extinct piece of furniture, beef up the joinery, so it will last for hundreds of years, and then reintroduce it to the world and make sure we didn't lose that history. But why this piece was so popular? Well, the average log cabin as a pioneer moved here was only 10 by 14. 5 people would spend 15 years in that 10 by 14 cabin. Those are the average numbers. So tall and skinny maximized your floor space. That's why that piece is so perfect. For 2 feet of floor, that's just a lot of storage. And they were tall and skinny like a chimney. That's how they got their name. Now we were talking about hardwood and softwood. Here's a trick they used a lot back then. They do a softwood body and then put a hardwood face on it. So you got to look at what you wanted to look at without adding all that weight and keeping the hours down on the building process.
Okay, once again, we're back with Ken, and I'm just freaking out as Ken showed me around his shop, and this is years of work, folks. And we're going to be showing you some birdhouses, the cigar box guitars. That trips me up. I keep wanting to say guitar box cigars. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that Ken makes, and I'm going to try to get to most of it, but there's so much we'll never get it in one segment. But first of all, let's talk about the guitars. And what I want to know right away, because I'm confused. I play guitar. It has 6 strings. I also play bass. It has 4 strings. Why does this have 4 strings, and how does it compare to a bass or a guitar and how it's tuned?
Well, basically, the 4-string guitar came from mountain folk. They went around and they found stuff. They didn't have money to buy a guitar, so they found things to make a guitar. So that's where the cigar box guitar came from, and the making of the neck out of the wood. And the strings, why they come up with the 4 strings, I'm not sure. But all I know is like this one has the 4 strings, and it is tuned to a G chord, G, D, G, B. So when you hit it, it's already got a chord to it.
That's so cheating.
So really, there's not any,
Wow. It's a G chord.
yeah. So it's an open G chord.
So you could play a G harmonica open string strum.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay, that blows my mind.
So yeah, and then really I watched a fellow talk about playing them. He said there's no wrong way to play them. You can just
Really?
sit down and pick strings, and you're always on a chord.
That's amazing. I have my eye on one of the guitars over there on the wall. I'll get to that later. But how long did it take you to make this? Was this probably not your first guitar, but
No, basically, well, when I made the first ones, I just put in the board and put on the string, and it was fine. I've got one of my first ones over there, and it's a fine-sounding guitar. But I myself play a 6-string guitar, and I look at the necks. Well, this one is actually the brace out of a pallet. You can see the nail holes. But I wanted it wider, so I laminated walnut on the side. Well, then I lay it down, ran it through my plane so I get it nice and flat on one side.
is that an oak or a maple?
This is a walnut.
The neck.
This is from an oak pallet.
Because I tore apart a pallet once thinking I could easily tear it apart, and it was the hardest wood.
Yep.
I'm like,
yep.
it has to be oak.
Yep. You can come up with oak pallets, and that's what this one is. Was
Wow.
an oak pallet board. Well, once I get it flattened out, I lay it on its side, and I draw kind of the shape of the neck that I want. Take it on the bandsaw, and cut out the shape. Then I use a hand rasp, and I use it to shape the neck the way I want it.
Okay.
Well, then I make the fretboard, and it too ends up going through the plane to get it nice and flat. But then I have a special sanding block that you sand the neck with, and it puts a slight curve on the neck.
So it's not a straight. It's more of a
Yeah,
like
just like
that.
a regular guitar.
It's like okay.
So and go across. Then I have a template that marks out my frets. And I
Okay.
cut and mount all my frets in. A lot of the guitars don't have frets, and they're just a slide, because in the hill folk, it was made also by people that were blind.
Sure.
And so they would slide to the notes.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you get the slide guitar.
Wow.
But I make mine with the frets. The neck is the most important part of the guitar because it has to be flat. So when you hit the string, it doesn't hit any of the rest of the frets
Yeah,
down.
no buzz.
or you
Just
do
like
the
a
buzz.
regular guitar.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you spend all your time on the neck, and it'll take me a day and maybe a half to get the neck done, then mounting it into the box. This
Yeah.
one, I put the screws in the box. A lot of them, they glue them shut, so you can't get in them. But I put the screws in because it's electronic and things can go wrong. So I could take those screws out and open it up and get to the electronics inside the box to replace them if I have to.
So this is an electric acoustic.
Yep. That's all I make is electric cigar box guitars. And like I said, over on the
Wow.
wall, you'll see some that's made out of candy tins, out of projector slide boxes. I've made them out of cheese boxes. You can make them about anything because the basic part is the neck. And this, I was sitting in an airport and found this candy box. It's the only one they had like it, or I would have bought more than one. But I bought it just to make the guitar out of it because actually I'm diabetic and I'm supposed to have candy. So, but yeah, that came out pretty nice little guitar.
What's the story on this Winchester?
Actually, I had a guy come into my store with Winchester box. And he said, "Can you make a guitar out of this?" And I said, "Sure." And I made one. I liked it so well, I bought some more Winchester guitar knife boxes and made another guitar.
You hear that? That's a Winchester knife box.
Yep, limited edition knife box.
Wow.
A 2007 limited edition knife box.
Once again, we're back with Ken Basie, and now we're going to talk about the birdhouses. And you got to tell me the story about the birdhouses because you had an article written about you. So again, could you repeat that? Because that's pretty cool.
Okay, yeah, I was actually an independent auto mechanic. And I tore my bicep loose, my arm. It laid me up for 8 months. And when I came back to work, things just weren't taking off. It was winter time and all, and I kind of a prayer warrior. So I went to the Lord in prayer. I said, "Lord, I got more bills than money coming in. What am I to do?" In the back of my mind came build birdhouses. So I tore down an old corn crib that was on my property, and I'd kept the board and the tin off the top. So I went out and I put it on the floor of my shop, And I said, okay, build birdhouses. What am I going to build? Well, they call it barn board. So build barns. So I started building barns, and I started doing craft shows. And they were telling me, well, yeah, they're too expensive. I like them, but they're too expensive. So I had a gentleman show up in my shop one day, and he says, have you tried the downtown farmers market in Des Moines? So I said, no, but I'm ready to try anything. So I went down, and in 5 hours, I sold $500 worth of birdhouses. So I thought, this is where I need to be. So, so the next year I got as many Saturdays as I could. The very first Saturday I set up, a guy comes up and sets up a table beside me selling soups and salsas. And he goes on and on about my birdhouses. He gets ready to leave. He hands me his business card. He's a photographer for Meredith Corporation.
Sure.
Through his guidance, he got us in Country Home and Midwest Living magazine, and then we started shipping out of state. Well, then we turned around and I went out to the shop and my phone rang, and this lady, she says, I get Country Home magazine. I thought, okay, you're going to order a birdhouse. And she says, I'm a writer for the Chicago Tribune. I think there's a story here. So she interviews me over the phone. They hire a photographer out of Des Moines. And on Easter Sunday, we came out on the front page of the Home and Garden section of Chicago Tribune.
Front page.
Front page.
Nice.
And the next day I came out to the shop, and my phone started ringing. And we sent $3,400 worth of birdhouses to the Chicago area.
Wait, how long ago was that?
It's 2000.
2000. So 24 years ago.
24 years
You started
ago.
touring with the birdhouses.
Yep. And
Okay.
I ran into people that said, well, if we sent you a picture, would you build a barn? And yeah, I can do that. So I have people that sent me pictures of their family barns.
Of their family barn, and you copy it.
And I copy it. And with those, I do the windows and doors all the way around.
Sure. So they get any pictures all the way around it.
So it's their barn. And I'm still getting requests off and on.
Well,
to
yeah,
build
because imagine
family
if
barns.
they have to leave someday, they got the little barn they could take with them. That's beautiful.
So basically, yeah, this has been a God's gift.
Could you grab one of the barns? And
This is one, and this is actually tin off the top of the barns. I cut it to make it look like the shingles.
you got me there.
And it's recycled barn wood that comes up.
So it's barn tin and barn wood.
Barn wood. This one, I just put the front on. I don't put them all the way around, because once you go all the way around, I tell people when they come in, count your windows and your doors and add 15 minutes, a window and a door, and they get up to be $300-400
Yeah.
when they're done. But it's their family barn,
Yeah.
and they buy it. So yeah,
I noticed it's kind of heavy. It's
It's-
not like you're going to get at the grocery store.
no. In fact, I've had birdhouses out for 10 years.
Yeah.
This one,
That's got to be 10 pounds?
no, it's probably
8.
7, 8.
Okay.
You know, I ship them, and they ship around 6 to 7 pounds.
Okay.
Is when now this one with a wide base, it's actually, they're all wren houses.
Okay.
And so actually, you can't really see it, but there's nail heads here. There's actually a nesting box built on the inside.
Oh,
And then the floors are made to come out.
so you could change it and clean it.
Clean it if you have to. Wrens clean their own houses. But I had one person say, well, I got a wasp in mine. Well, you got to clean out the wasp nest.
Yeah.
So I put the year that I made it, my name, and being as it came through prayer, each one I put Matthew 6:26 on the bottom that states, look at the birds of the air. They neither sow nor reap or store away in barn, and looks how our Heavenly Father takes care of them. Aren't you more valuable than they?
Yes. That's beautiful. All right. Thanks for joining us on Iowa Tonight. I'm here with Ken. This is David, and you have a great tonight.